Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. Rusty and Heather Bryant back with another episode. Hey, I was thinking about this a while ago, and if you are not already following us on social media, please jump on those social media channels and follow us. We actually had a video go viral.
Yeah, we did.
I wasn't sure.
What is it even us?
Well, it was funny because I wasn't even sure. I don't even know what really viral means.
That's right.
But I looked it up because I was like, surely this is viral. I mean, that's lots of
You Googled it?
lots of tens of thousands of views.
Yeah.
It said something like a video goes viral. I think it said 10,000 to 20,000 views or something. I'm like, oh man, we crushed that. We're like extra viral.
Viral plus.
No, that was funny. But really, we've been trying to put out some new content on Instagram and Facebook.
And we have a sweet listener that's been helping.
Yes, and that's what's so cool.
Yeah,
because
she's crushing it.
Yeah, so we're just having fun. We're trying to put some good content out there for all marriages. And so, we do try to post every day, especially on Facebook. And now we've gotten a little more consistent because we've gotten some good expert help on Instagram, but also YouTube. I know you guys probably know this, but we set up a video camera so we can record these podcasts. So if you want to see our faces and want to watch us on YouTube, go subscribe.
If you want to see my cute shirt.
Today is 8 years of cancer survival for Heather.
It says, in my survivor era.
There you go.
Oh, it's so cute. It's pink.
Yep. So, so anyway, we're in lots of different places, and I hope that you guys continue to listen to this podcast on some sort of podcast platform because it helps more people see our podcast or be able to listen to it when more people are listening. And I know we say this from time to time, but like seriously, if you have a chance, especially on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, if you're able to leave a rating and also a review, it just puts it in front of more people, and it gives a little more credibility. And, we're one of those that just truly believes that God puts what he wants to hear in front of people. And we've heard some miraculous stories of how our podcast gets in people's ears sometimes. And it's crazy. But we also know that you guys can be a vessel of that. And you may not be out there wanting to, help marriages individually, may not feel called to that, but you can be a vessel in helping other people find marriage resources. And so, do that. And on social media, send us a note, comment, like, whatever all that stuff is. Just interact with us.
Send us a note. Write us a letter.
You can write us a letter, put it in the snail mail. And the other thing I was thinking about is we do love interacting with people. We try to respond to every email, every contact. If we've missed you along the way for whatever reason, reach back out because it wasn't on purpose. Like if you give us a direct message, even in social media, or fill out our contact form on our website, we try to respond to every single one of them ourselves. Sometimes people have asked us, are y'all actually the ones that do the marriage coaching? And I'm looking around and I'm like, well, there ain't nobody else has got our story in this house. It is us.
That's right.
But no, I appreciate that because there are a lot of people that teach other people how to do marriage coaching and they kind of follow a curriculum or whatever. But no, it's our story. And we love journeying with people. So, okay, sorry. Let's go.
Lots of intro there, boss.
Nah,
So
that's much less time than what we normally do.
Really?
We just chatted up with our peeps. You know what I'm saying?
You're so weird. Okay, I am so excited about this topic because we have been talking the last couple of weeks about words that you might think about in your marriage and that you think you might be the only one in the world that feels that way about your marriage. But for example, 2 weeks ago was alone.
Alone.
Yep. Maybe you feel alone in your marriage. And we talked about how to combat that and to things you could do and the truth behind the fact that you're not alone. Last week we talked about being incompatible. What do you do when you're incompatible with your spouse? And we gave lots of ways that we were in. Well, let me rephrase that. Rusty gave lots of ways that we were
You
incompatible.
thought we were perfect for each other.
It's like, dang, we really are different. So that was fun to listen to those and to see them as a blessing and a gift. And then this week we're going to talk about the word disappointed. Are you or do you feel disappointed in your marriage? Maybe it's not what you imagined it would be when you were a little girl. You know, I think about these little girls, and I was one that thought about what my wedding would be and what my marriage, and watching the fairy tales and the Cinderellas and the, all the Beauty and the Beast and
the
all of that.
Hallmark movies.
I wasn't watching those as a little girl. And then thinking, this is not what I thought it was going to be like. Because on your wedding day, there's nobody that on their wedding day doesn't think this is going to be the most perfect marriage. And then real life starts happening, and there it can lead to disappointment. And so then, like you're talking about, the Hallmark movies, then you start looking around at other marriages, maybe highlight reels from other people's marriages. Or you look at, watching movies. And thinking,
The Bachelor,
that's right. And you're like, I don't know if that shows the perfect marriage. And just, those are
No, I'm just saying, yeah, I know. Yeah, you're right. Bachelor and Bachelorette
that's
definitely
not a
don't.
good example.
No.
But you could watch Hallmark Channel and think, oh, he's so sweet and he does this, and or she's like that, and then it's just not real life, first of all. But what do you do? What do you do when you are, because I would say that out of 10, every 10 of our listeners, I bet 8 would say, at least 8 would say there's disappointment in their marriage, that something didn't turn out the way they thought that it would.
And probably out of the couples that we do marriage coaching with, it would be 10 out of 10, which is why they're doing marriage coaching.
Well, and we get, people fill out those surveys all the time, and it says, how happy are you in your marriage on a scale of 1 to 10? Very rarely do we get a 10.
Oh, yeah.
It's usually right. 2, 3.
You mean when they inquire about marriage coaching? That's right. Right. It's usually somewhere between 2 and 5.
Yeah. So, I mean, disappointment is a big part. And we know.
Or 0 and 5.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
So we know. I'm thinking about my Hallmark ratings. And you don't ever get a 0. It either gets a 1 star, 2 star, all the way up to 10. You can't give 0 stars.
Well, you can if it's really bad.
Well, that's just I DNF it. I did not finish. But you got to finish your marriage. So.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway.
0 stars on Yelp.
This is 0 stars on Yelp. But we want you to have 10 stars on Yelp. So disappointment. We know that the definition of disappointment is unmet expectation. It is somebody had an expectation about what something was going to be, and it fell short. Something you were going to do, something you were going to say, what life was going to be like, that vacation. I mean, we all do that. I mean, I still do this. I have expectation of what today was going to look like, with it being my 8-year cancer anniversary, like celebration, and you let me pick where we wanted to go to lunch. And I mean, I have expectations of, oh, I wonder if it's going to be like this. And if it falls short, you can't help but to be disappointed. Same thing with I'm just trying to think of real life examples for me. When we went to visit Luke, not too long ago in Oregon. It was like, oh, I wonder if we'll get to eat breakfast with, oh, he's going to run to me and be excited when he sees me. And, I mean, you think of all these things of what it's going to be like. And there were a million ways it exceeded my expectations. But if something didn't get hit in that right place, it just sets you up from disappointment. And then disappointment leads to more disappointment, and then more disappointment, and then more disappointment. It's frustrating.
Yeah, and I think there's disappointments, obviously not even marriage related. Yes, I mean, you just were hitting on some of them, but, I think like our kids disappoint us all the time. And, or as they were growing up, they would disappoint us. And I mean, they still do in some ways, but we're disappointed at work. We're disappointed with coworkers, just, we just have this, and
Everybody does.
yeah, and it's always unmet expectations. And I think that that's where all the disappointment begins. And those expectations, sometimes they're valid and they're realistic, but then sometimes they are extremely unrealistic.
Yes. I agree. And I think that more times than not, that's the case. It's like, why? It's kind of like a long time ago, but like before we had our crisis, I expected you to make me happy. That's an unrealistic expectation. Like, you are not in charge of my happiness. Now, did you do things that could contribute to my happiness? Absolutely. But my happiness and my joy could not be found in you. So the fact that I wanted you to be that for me was unrealistic. What are some other unrealistic expectations that you think on a regular basis people might have?
Well, I just think that, we're so different. And so obviously we have expectations of each other that don't always get met. And, I think that we talk to lots of couples where the female has this expectation of these deep emotional connections, where, and I think a lot of times it's because when females are growing up and when girls are growing up, they have these, like I just imagine y'all and picture you guys being like in college, and you stay up all night talking to your girls, and in the dorm room, and you just are having these heart to hearts, and you start dating, and you're like, oh, that's what marriage is. We're gonna stay up all night, and we're just gonna talk about our feelings and how much we love it, our dreams for the future, and all that. And that's, I mean, obviously, everybody's laughing right now because that is so unrealistic. But I believe that, somewhere in that little girl's heart, that's what you're thinking, thinking about that. And that's what you're dreaming about. And then for all of the guys are having these expectations of this incredible physical intimacy that's going to last a lifetime. And, we joke about, well, the dream is you're going to have sex every day and twice on Sundays, that kind of thing. But I think that's the same thing that a lot of guys have this expectations of, oh, man, we get married, we just anytime we want to, we can be intimate. And so you've got these two extremely different, unrealistic expectations. And they're unrealistic expectations because they're not going to happen.
Yep.
It's not going to happen. Now, what do you do with that? Well, you have to rein in some of those expectations, for one thing, because sometimes you need to actually have realistic expectations. And those realistic expectations come with genuine communication. And like, hey, where can we meet somewhere in the middle on this? Or not even, not meet in the middle, but just have realistic expectations. Where can we meet so that I'm comfortable, you're comfortable? For you to come and say, I just want to talk. I want wants to share feelings. And then if I were to turn around and go, well, that's not, guys don't do that. That's not how we're made. That's not how we're wired. That's not fair. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not right. Like, that's an important part of marriage. And then, of course, the flip side of that is, we could talk about the same thing on the physical side of things. So there's this, these expectations that you have to rein in a little bit and make them realistic, and make them realistic through communication. Because, all right, take away, those are big things. Like,
Right.
those are big things. But then let's pull it in a little bit and start talking about just the smaller everyday expectations that, if you don't communicate about those expectations, then how does your spouse even know that that's an expectation? We had a coaching call the other night where they, as we started, they actually said, hey, we're going to throw a little bit of a curveball to you guys, and we want to talk about chores. And we were like, what a great topic. And I think that we weave stuff like that into our sessions sometimes, but for them to just come straight out and just go,
that was a struggle.
yeah, and they're like, we don't know what to do because I want him to do this, he wants me to do this, we have these expectations. And so, if you don't ever talk about it, how in the world are you supposed to know that those are your expectations?
Right. Well, and along those same lines, God wired us differently. And that's okay, and it's good. But if you ever just say, that's just how I am, well, that your eyes are on you, and you're saying to your spouse, I really don't care what you need. I'm wired this way, and so that's how I'm going to do it. For example, and you've used this before, but that book you were reading, that talks about the differences in not women and men necessarily, because some men are wired differently than, like, some men think about sex a lot and some women think about sex a lot, and then some, other way.
Right.
Well, if I were to say to you, I'm just not wired that. And well, let me back up. You've said in that book, it blew your mind that you were like, she genuinely doesn't think about it as much as I do. Like,
Secrets of Sex and Marriage.
Yeah, Secrets of Sex in Sex.
Secrets of Sex and Marriage.
Okay, so you tell. I think that's it.
You
tell the part.
Well, I see it. It's right over there. And it's Shanti Feldhahn, who we met the other day. What a great,
of sex and marriage.
Okay,
I can see the word "of" from here.
Secrets of Sex and Marriage.
So you were saying that you read it, and we've been married a long time, and you were like, she's just like, it blew your mind that I didn't think about it as much as you did, and you're like, how can she not think about it as much as I do? But in that book you were just reading, like, that's real life. Like, it's not that I go, oh, I think about sex and I just don't want to do it. I literally do not think about it as much as you do. But instead of me saying, I'm just wired that way, God didn't make me that way, or I'm going through menopause, or whatever other excuse that I could throw at you, instead I say, okay, I'm not wired that way, but I know that you are. And so I'm going to choose to love you in that way. Now, not as many times as you would prefer, but there's somewhere where it's like, I'm giving to you because I know how much you need and desire that. And then you're giving me grace in the same way, knowing that I don't think about it near as much as you do. So it's taking, now we could both sit back and be exceedingly disappointed. That's what we're talking about. How can we take these things that could cause disappointment and make them to where it's not a disappointment? I also think that, and this is a big one for me, this is something that I've learned semi-recently, is that a lot of the ways that you serve me, okay, you choose to love me, okay? You choose to love me and serve me by, if you get home before I do and there's dishes in the sink, you will put them up. Maybe there's an extra load of laundry and you're like, oh, I can fold that on my lunch break. This is the one that specifically stood out to me. You started making my coffee. Every night you would clean, rinse out the little thingy, and you would put in new coffee, and you would set it to come on. You would grind the beans, put those in, and set it to come on at 5:21. And if you didn't hear that last week, then you need to go back and listen. But you set it for 5:21 to come on, same time as my alarm. So I have 9 minutes till it's ready. And and you did that, and I can remember thinking, that is so sweet. Like, he's doing that for me. Like, he's loving me well. He's thinking about me. Like, it just made me so happy that you started doing my coffee. And I would go and do it 2 or 3 nights, and then you would do it. And I'd be like, oh, thank you. Thank you for doing that for me. And then all of a sudden, it became an expectation. Because if I walked over to do my coffee, or I woke up the next morning to drink my coffee and it wasn't done, I had the nerve to be mad about it. So what happened is, something that you used to do, or that you did to start serving me and to love me well, all of a sudden turned into an expectation. And when that's not met, I was disappointed. I was frustrated and mad at you because I woke up to no coffee being done. So when did it switch from being thank you, thank you, thank you, to just that's your job now?
Yeah.
And I think that happens with lots of things, like chores, like we were talking about to that couple the other night. It's like, well, I mean, I don't know. She always washes the sheets. Well, that's the expectation. But why is that an expectation? Like, just because she started doing it all the time? Yep. And so what I challenge you to do is two things. One, communicate. Like, communicate about those things. If it's, if you need help doing the sheets, then communicate that. Don't just assume. And the other thing is to make sure that you're still seeing it as not a responsibility, but as something that they are doing because they love you. Like, I have got to remind myself that you make my coffee every night because you love me, not because it's a chore or that I need to be disappointed if you don't do. But to if you miss a night, then I go, oh, well, I mean, he does that all of the time because he loves me and he chooses to do that. I can make my own dang coffee, It's just looking at it through the correct lens of somebody serving you versus a disappointment if it doesn't get done.
A lot of times I think, too, if you step into their shoes and do the thing that they're doing, it will also remind you to be appreciative of it. I came in today after, I'd gone to the grocery, and when I came back, you had folded a bunch of clothes, and I thanked you for folding the clothes because I fold the clothes a lot of times. And so, like, I know, like, it's no fun, but I didn't. It reminds me that shouldn't just be an expectation, and it reminds me of how thankful I am, when you do those things. I was trying to, just like when you said you're not wired like that. I mean, you were talking about the physical intimacy and stuff, and you were saying, I could use that as an excuse, and I think a lot of times, even with little kids, I think that we use excuses a lot of times too, like for a guy to say, oh, well, I mean, I wasn't wired to change diapers, or I wasn't wired to
created to.
yeah, I wasn't like that's not a guy thing, or bathing little kids is not what we're made to do, that kind of thing. And then in the same way, I know that there's some moms that are like, oh, sports and taking them to that's you. Like, you do that. And now I get dividing up roles and responsibilities and things like that. But there's also got to be this these spoken expectations of, I remember when our kids were little, like, you would just say, it would be really helpful for you to take bath night. I mean, you be in charge of baths at night. And I did for, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you did it some,
Mm-hmm.
but for years and years
Yep.
and years, I bathed those kids. And I was not made to bathe kids, you know? I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like, but I did that because I knew it helped you, and the kids can't bathe themselves. They needed somebody to bathe them. And it ended up being a fun time, and it was something that I enjoyed, and we would have fun, and bubbles or whatever, and just goofing off and stuff. And but that was something that we communicated with each other, and it was also something that I never made any kind of an excuse. Or and like, I think a lot of people do that with cooking. Guys may be like, oh no, that's the
Mm-hmm.
woman's job. But there's just so many things that I think you just have to communicate, and you just have to say, look, these are things that would help. And and then I love what you said about just not turning something into a responsibility that you forget to be appreciative of those things. And the coffee thing was a great example, just because it's easy when you get into a habit of something to just kind of expect it. I mean, I think we do that with the yard a
Mm-hmm.
lot. And, I do that with just the organization of the house and how things are kept in place and order. I just think, well, that's what you do. And so there's no reason that I have to say thank you for that, or I appreciate that, that it looks this way. So it's just this gratitude, and it's not taking for granted, and it's not labeling things as your job, my job, responsibilities. It's just, hey, we're serving each other, and these are the things that we really appreciate about each other. Why are you laughing? Because I had a gurgle in my throat or burp. I don't know what it was.
Okay, so what do we do? What about the person who's listening to this and they're like, yeah, 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 y'all are dancing around all of the other little things, but I'm just disappointed in my marriage. It's not what I thought it was going to be.
I'm disappointed in the person that I am
Yeah.
married to.
And not the person that I'm married to, we're incompatible. We talked about that last week. But the person that I married, he's just not the same anymore. Like, he doesn't love me well anymore, or she doesn't love me well anymore. What I mean, that's a real thing. Like, I'm just disappointed in what I thought marriage was going to be.
Well, I think a lot of times that disappointment also stems from just how much we change as we go through life. And obviously, we've been married for 28 years. Yes, 28 years. And during those 28 years, we've experienced lots of change. And so for us to look back 28 years ago and expect each other to be the same, and then, to go, well, why can't it be like it used to be? Why aren't you like you used to be? And so we have to be able to accept the changes that come along through time. And some of that is like physical changes, it's health, it's even psychological, neurological changes, just things that as you grow, and there's some things that you can't even help. A lot of those things, I mean, people have to be on medicine for certain things, and that can affect different parts of you. It's just, there's a lot of stuff that we have to just be really gracious and sensitive, and even just understanding that things are not going to always be the same. Now, another thing that we do talk about is, we say, hey, if you want what you used to have, then you have to do what you used to do. So some of it is actions, and it's thinking back to the things that you did when your relationship was in a better place. And so you can look at the disappointment that you're in right now, and you can go, well, I mean, I used to do these things, and I don't do those anymore, or we
Yeah.
don't do those anymore. And I would say that those are the type of things where you have to look at yourself and say, okay, well, I need to start that. The change needs to start with me
Yeah.
because I can't fix my spouse. And, my goodness, that is the thing that we get more pushback than anything else. Because if we put something out on social media or we say something on this podcast, and people will come back and go, oh, yeah, but it takes two. Or, yeah, well, you don't know what my spouse. That's exactly right, because you cannot fix your spouse. And we know that. We've been through those seasons as well. And when you know that you can't fix your spouse, then what can you fix?
Yourself.
That's it.
That's it.
You can only fix yourself. And I don't think there's anybody out there that can look and go, well, I'm absolutely perfect.
Right.
So I'm just going to keep doing my perfect self thing. And then maybe my spouse will come along and change.
And if you do think that, you're the problem.
That's exactly right. And if you think you're even close to perfect, then you're the problem. But maybe you are striving for it and you're doing the best that you can. And to be real honest, that is all you can do.
That's right. And that can be frustrating.
Absolutely.
And that can be hard. And that can be disappointing.
Yes.
But it's the only thing you can do. Like, you cannot fix your spouse. You can pray like a crazy person for them. But you just have to keep doing your part and play your role and take care of yourself and try to love your spouse the best way that you can.
I was talking with another. I was doing a one-on-one with someone the other day, and I started talking to him about when you were getting to that point where you were starting to go through that slippery slope leading to infidelity. And I remember I have asked you, and even on the Inside the Mind of the Adulterer, I asked you, I said, what could I have said or done? And you were like, nothing. Like, there's nothing you could have said or done. And I've even asked, what about somebody else? And you said, yeah, maybe, maybe somebody else speaking into you in the right way and at the right time, it might would have done something. But for me, it was almost the exact opposite. Like, trying to fix you would have made things and made things even worse.
And would have made me exceedingly defensive.
Right. And so just to know that, and it doesn't just apply to someone that's, flirting with infidelity. This is just in all areas of life.
Right.
That it's really, really hard to have your spouse try to fix all of your problems. Now, there are obviously great ways to communicate, some things that you need to work on, and we have lots of good tools for that kind of thing. But you can't fix your spouse. And so, just like you said, you can pray for them like crazy. That's about the closest thing you can do
and the best thing
to actually fixing them. To try to fix them is to call on God. And I know sometimes it feels like he's not listening. I've been praying. He's not listening. Well, you keep praying, and then you work on yourself. Because, oh my goodness, we're just chatting away, and it's like we've been talking for a long time. Who knew? But that's the whole goal, and the whole point is that you work on yourself and you become the godly spouse and the godly parent that you're supposed to be. And then you pray and ask God to work on your spouse, because that's all you can do.
That's right. And I think about us, and I know we're over time, so we'll close with this, but I think about us. I can't imagine anybody being more disappointed in their marriage than what you were 13 years ago. I would say even more than I was. I was disappointed in myself, but I can't imagine the disappointment you felt 13 years ago of just, God, this is not what I signed up for. And if anybody, anybody can come back from a disappointing marriage if we can after what we have been through. And there's not a single ounce of our marriage that I'm disappointed in now. And so for us to have come from the most disappointed anybody could be to where we are now is nothing short of a miracle. And to remember and remind our listeners that God is a God of miracles. Like, it's not just something he did in the back in the day in the Bible. He works miracles today. And your marriage can be one of them. And so just an encouragement to you to keep trying, to keep putting one foot in front of the other, keep taking it to the Lord and taking your marriage to the Lord and just saying, God, I'm bringing this to your feet again today. And just remembering in the little things to not be disappointed in them, to see them as acts of service, to see them as and continue to serve your spouse. And just remember that marriage is a gift.
That's good. It's a great word to end on. So, hey, thank you guys for listening. I know that so many of you have felt that feeling of I am disappointed in my marriage. And so hopefully this is giving you some hope and that you can fight for your marriage for another day. And we're right here with you and fighting alongside you. So let us know how we can help, and we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.
Peace.